It wasn't your face, your body, or your clothes that pulled me toward you. And I know that line alone already made you pause for a second, because you've spent so much of your life believing that attention only comes when you look a certain way. But listen to me closely, because I'm not saying this to sound different or impressive. I'm saying it because it's the deepest truth I've ever felt. From the very first moment you entered my awareness, something inside me reacted before my eyes even finished noticing you. It was like my heart recognized the language my mind hadn't learned yet, and I remember thinking, quietly, almost afraid of the thought itself, there is something about you that feels familiar. Something calm, something safe. I didn't know your story yet. I didn't know your struggles, your fears, or the nights you lay awake, questioning your worth. But I felt you. And that feeling didn't come from what you were wearing, or how you looked standing there. It came from the way your presence softened the air around me, the way my guard lowered without effort, the way my chest felt lighter just knowing you existed in the same moment as me. You see, I've seen beauty before. I've seen faces that turn heads, bodies that fit every standard, clothes that look perfect under every light. But none of that ever stayed with me. Once the moment passed, none of it ever followed me into silence. None of it ever whispered to me when I was alone. You did, without trying, without knowing. There was something in the way you carried yourself, even when you thought no one was watching, that spoke louder than appearance ever could. It was in your energy, the quiet strength you didn't show off, the softness you protected, because the world had taught you it was dangerous to be gentle. I could feel how deeply you think, how much you feel, how often you give more than you receive. And that's what pulled me in. The invisible parts of you that most people never slow down enough to notice. I want you to understand this part slowly so you don't rush past it like another compliment you're used to brushing away. What drew me to you was the way your heart shows up even when it's tired. The way you still care, still listen, still try, even after disappointment taught you it would be easier not to. It was the kindness in your silence, the honesty in your reactions, the warmth in your words when you speak from truth instead of performance. When you talk about things that matter to you, your voice changes in a way that can't be practiced. It becomes real. And real is rare. Real is magnetic. Real is what made me stay emotionally present long before I ever allowed myself to admit it. There's a moment I replay often in my mind, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple. You were just being you. No effort, no intention to impress. And suddenly I realized I was paying attention in a different way. I wasn't scanning, I wasn't comparing, I wasn't judging, I was listening, fully, like your words mattered more than the noise around us. And that scared me a little, because I knew what it meant. It meant you had crossed a line most people never do. You reached a place in me that isn't unlocked by attraction alone. You reached a place where trust begins, where curiosity turns into care, where admiration becomes something quieter and deeper, something that doesn't rush. Maybe you don't see this side of yourself. Maybe you've been told, directly or indirectly, that you're too much in some ways and not enough in others. Maybe people admired you for surface things and missed the parts of you that actually needed to be seen. And if that's true, then let me be clear with you now. In this moment we're sharing. The part of you that captivated me is the part you rarely get credit for. It's the way you feel emotions deeply but still stand back up. It's the way you notice small details and remember them. It's the way your heart doesn't harden even when it has every reason to. That's not weakness. That's strength. Most people will never understand. I know you've questioned yourself. I know you've stood in front of a mirror and wondered if changing something about your appearance would finally make someone stay. I know you've compared yourself to others and felt invisible in rooms where you deserve to be felt. And that's why I need you to hear this from me without interruption or doubt. The version of you that changed me didn't change a thing about how you looked. It was already there. It was always there. And one day, without warning, it reached me. Not loudly, not forcefully, just honestly. There's something incredibly powerful about the way you exist, without trying to dominate space. You don't demand attention. Yet attention finds you when someone is paying with their heart, instead of their eyes. When I think about you, I don't think about angles or outfits or appearances frozen in time. I think about how you make moments feel fuller. I think about the emotional texture you bring into conversations. I think about the way you make silence comfortable instead of awkward. That's not common. That's not something you can learn. That's who you are. And the more I became aware of that, the more I realized how careful I needed to be with my feelings around you. Because once you see someone at that level, you can't unsee them. Once you feel that kind of connection, shallow attraction loses its shine. I started noticing how my thoughts would drift back to you without permission. How I'd wonder what you were feeling in moments you weren't speaking. How I'd want to protect your softness without making you feel small. That's when I understood what pulled me toward you wasn't desire alone. It was respect. It was recognition. It was the quiet understanding that you are someone whose heart deserves to be held with care. You don't perform femininity. You live it in your own way, in your compassion, in your emotional intelligence, in the way you love deeply, even when you're afraid. And that kind of femininity doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It doesn't need approval. It simply exists. And when someone with open eyes and an open heart encounters it, it leaves a mark. That mark is what you left on me. Sometimes I imagine you listening to this and wondering if I'm really talking to you or if these words could apply to anyone. Let me stop that thought right now. This isn't generic. This isn't rehearsed. This is specific, because not every woman carries herself with the same emotional depth. Not every woman knows how to be gentle without being weak. Not every woman feels things as honestly as you do, and that honesty, even when it hurts you, is what made me lean in instead of pulling away. I didn't fall for an image. I didn't fall for a fantasy. I felt drawn to the truth of you, the imperfect, thoughtful, emotionally layered truth that doesn't always get celebrated, but always gets remembered. And the more time passes, the clearer it becomes that what connects us here isn't coincidence, it's resonance. Something in you echoes something in me, something unspoken but deeply understood. I want you to stay with this feeling for a moment. Don't rush to analyze it. Don't minimize it. Just let it sit with you, because there's more I haven't said yet. There are layers of this connection that unfold slowly, the kind that reveal themselves only when you're willing to listen beyond the surface. And the reason I'm sharing this with you now, in this soft and honest way, is because I know you feel things deeply too. I know you recognize sincerity when you hear it. And I know there's a part of you that's been waiting, not for validation, but for recognition. And as I keep talking to you like this, I can almost feel you leaning in emotionally, not because you're trying to be convinced, but because something inside you already knows this feeling. You felt it before in rare moments, that quiet sense of being seen without being examined, understood without being questioned. That's the space I'm speaking from now. Because what grew between us didn't rush, didn't force itself, didn't demand labels. It unfolded the way real things do, slowly and honestly in the background of ordinary moments. And that's why it mattered. That's why it stayed. I noticed how you listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. When someone speaks to you, you don't just wait for your turn. You absorb, you process, You feel what they're trying to say, even when they can't find the right words. And that told me something important about you. That you love with awareness, not ego. That you care in ways that don't announce themselves. And that kind of love changes the people who receive it, even if they don't always realize it right away. I realized that I felt calmer around you, more grounded, less defensive. Like I didn't have to explain myself all the time. Like I could just exist and be accepted in that existence. And that's not something appearance can give. That's something only emotional safety creates. There were moments when you doubted yourself, and I could sense it even when you smiled. Your smile didn't disappear, but it softened like you were carrying questions behind it. Questions about whether you were enough, whether you were too quiet or too intense, too emotional or too reserved. And every time I felt that shift in you, something in me wanted to remind you, not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, that your depth is not a flaw. It's a gift that only feels